Welcome, boils and ghouls, to the Cryptique Podcast. My name's Kenny, and I'm here with my good friend Godden, and together we're here to watch and review every horrific, often hilarious episode of the legendary HBO anthology series, Tales from the Crypt. The season finale of Tales from the Crypt episode... No, let me start that over again. I said it wrong. The season finale of Tales from the Crypt, season 3. That's what I meant to say. Episode 3 from... No, I got this all wrong. Oh my gosh. Oh man. I'm going in circles. Season 3, episode 14. The episode is called Yellow. Now, this just blows my mind how the stars align for this podcast, Godden. The season finale of season 3 is today, Friday the 13th. How cool is that? It's amazing.
I've noticed from the last season too, there was I guess it was this season as well, where things were just lining up for those days where it's just, pitch perfect when we, record and submit it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And remember, was it last season we were recording, our episode, came out on Halloween. What was it? It was the haunted house one. The television terror. Remember that? Yeah, that like terror. Luckily had just come out on Halloween. So this episode the season finale is coming out on Friday the 13th. And I'm representing Godden.
I'm sorry. I wish I had merchandise to represent as well, but they're in the wash.
That's okay. Not everybody can be as big of a Friday the 13th fan as me. It's okay, Godden. Hey, there are more Friday the 13th in the future.
Is that true? Is that consistent? Or is it just like, yeah?
No, there's a Friday the 13th. Yeah, there's always a Friday the 13th in the future. There's only so many calendars we have.
That's fair.
All right. Anyway, that's enough of that. Hey, we're here to talk about Yellow. By the way, this comes from Shock Suspense Stories. I didn't mention that. I usually do. Oh, and I didn't mention the premiere date, August 28th, 1991. I think I'm so excited to get into this episode that I'm just forgetting everything. There's so much to mention. It's the season finale. It's Friday the 13th, and it's a good episode to get into. So, spoiler alert. So before we do get into this fully, though, I do want to mention this has a lot of notable names. Directed by Robert Zemeckis. Okay, and Robert Zemeckis is the one who also directed the All Through the House, which is another one of my favorite Tales from the Crypt episodes. It stars Kirk Douglas and Eric Douglas, who is Kirk Douglas's son. So there's a father-son actors, but also they play father-son in the actual series, in the actual show. So that's pretty cool. Dan Aykroyd has a role in this, which is it's interesting to see Dan Aykroyd be this low on credits. Like the fact that you have Dan Aykroyd in an episode and he's this far down. And speaking of being surprised about having actors far down on their credits, Lance Hendrickson is in this one. So this is the second Lance Hendrickson episode. The first one being Cutting Cards, which is another episode that I gave a 5 to. Did you give a 5 to that one? I don't remember.
If it wasn't a 5, it's at least a 4.5 or higher. Yeah.
I'm about to put you on blast here, Godden.
3.
Cutting Cards. You gave it a 4.5. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. That's
sounds
good.
About right.
That's good. All right. You're off the hook. All right. So let's dive into this episode. But before we do, I've got to give a disclaimer. We are not professionals. We're not experts. Other than just watching the episode and coming prepared with what I think about the episode, I've done no research. So if we get something wrong, if we miss something, I want you to come through in the comments to help us out. We're also trying to build a community here, and that involves you at home who's listening on your own. So yeah, feel free to comment. Please, please, please. All right. So with that out of the way, let's get to the plot of this episode by first reading the synopsis written on the back of the DVD box set. Yellow. Paths of twisted glory a World War I general devises a plan to prove his soldier son is not a coward. That's actually pretty good. I like that. I like that because, yeah, he devises a plan to prove his son is not a coward, and that's actually what it's spot on. I think that's exactly what he does. But I do have a more in-depth synopsis here. Something I cooked up myself. Lieutenant Martin Kalthrob commands an army unit tasked with holding a strategic front in France during World War I. I almost called it World War II. There's only one problem. Lieutenant Kalthrob is yellow. He's terrified of dying, and his cowardice is putting the lives of his men at risk and threatens the stability of the entire front. After running away from battle and leaving his men for dead, Lieutenant Kalthrob is found guilty of cowardice and sentenced to death. Luckily, the lieutenant's father is also the general responsible for carrying out his execution. Can the general devise a plan to save his son and free him from the agonies of war? So, before we get into it, general thoughts, Godden. What are your general thoughts about this episode?
I guess I didn't know it was going to be a war-themed episode, and I'm really biased when it comes to like warfare because I like the history behind it. But my rating might not match up to my biasness towards this kind of theme. But overall, I do enjoy it. Like you mentioned before, this might be like one of the highest production sets that they had for maybe the entire series or just the season because, yeah, it looks really well done. Like it really is. I forgot it was a Tales from the Crypt. Realistically, I was like, oh, this is a World War I, movie or episode I'm watching.
Oh, yeah. It's very easy to forget this is a Tales from the Crypt. It's so out of pocket for what Tales from the Crypt is normally about, and it's the production value is incredible. There's an amazing team behind this episode. Not to mention, it's twice the length of a normal episode. You know what? I would like to know. This is the first episode that's longer than a typical episode. Is every season finale from here on out like double the length of an episode? I'd like to know that. I guess I can do some research, but what am I, an expert? Yeah, I thought this episode was fantastic. Yeah, Godden and I already talked a little bit about it, and I had already mentioned that this is some of the highest production value we've had so far in an episode. It's an amazing episode. It's on par with a movie. Like the opening sequence looks like something out of Private Ryan. Like it's an amazing sequence, and just the production value. Nothing looks like a set. Everything looks like it was filmed on location, or at least a large enough set to accompany all the action and all the things that were going on all at once. It looks fantastic. I think it tells a very poignant story. It's a great episode. I do have lots of thoughts about it. I'm looking forward to getting into it. I have lots of thoughts I want to share. I also have lots of questions. So I'm hoping that maybe I'd run a few things by you and our audience to see kind of what we'll get there when we get there. Okay. So the Crypt Keeper intro here, we have the Crypt Keeper. He's kind of like in this whole setting, like he's got everything doctored up to be like a World War I set, and he's looking down the barrel of a rifle. He says, "Firing squad, present arms. Hello, creeps. I was about to fire off tonight's Dead Time story. It's about a young soldier who doesn't want to be in the army anymore. I can't imagine why not. I mean, war's a great equal opportunity destroyer." Now, where was I? Oh, yes. Ready? Maim. And here's my favorite part. Fire! Of course, that's his favorite part, shooting things and killing things. He says, "I call tonight's tale Yellow." And that brings us to the opening panel. And this kind of sums up the episode. We've got, right, the guy in the main, in the front there. That's the lieutenant there. And clearly scared. He's terrified of being in war. Behind him is the captain, kind of staring, accusingly at him. And then even behind that is that, the stern, no nonsense father who's just, has some piercing eyes that are looking at his son. And of course, even behind that, even still, there's, the war going on, very much active battlefield, right? We got explosions and all kinds of stuff and dead bodies back there. So
yeah, I mean, it just says a lot about the grotesqueness of war, right? Like, look how normal those two are. They just easy for them to accept. Like they're just next to their dead brothers, and their next issue is our main character, but they're unfazed by what's happening behind them and around them. They have one target right now they're looking at, and it just shows like how gritty war can be, really.
That's a good point too. Yeah, the father is literally standing at the feet of a dead soldier, and there's dead soldiers all around him, and he could not be bothered more by that. I mean, he could not be unbothered more by that. He's just more bothered by the cowardice that he sees in his son. So that's an interesting take. And that brings us into the episode. Now, the episode opens, and you don't know this yet, but it's on the battlegrounds. It's a shot of the ground, and it's very muddy and brown and dirty, but there's a single yellow flower poking out from the ground. And this is where I got the sense, okay, this is going to be kind of a more artistic episode, right? It's very visually striking, very dirty, grungy ground with that beautiful single yellow flower kind of poking out. I also thought it was interesting that the yellow flower ends up getting covered by a dead soldier. So when the camera zooms out a little bit, you hear an explosion or gunfire, and a dead soldier falls on top of the flower. So I think that's interesting that the yellow is covered up by death. So I guess the fear or the cowardice goes away after death. I don't know. That's just something that I kind of put together when I saw it. I felt like that opening sequence was a little too visually profound to just let it go. So I'm trying to make sense out of it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm actually interested. You might have not caught it, but I'm pretty sure that's a daisy. And there's a specific phrase where, pushing daisies, right? And then it so happened to be a body right on top of it, on a daisy. So I'm like, yeah, they're just talking about death.
Oh,
so
right.
That's the first thing I grabbed.
When you're dead, and then this is the inverse, it's the upside down of that. Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad that you noticed that. I didn't notice that was a daisy. I didn't know it was a daisy.
Yeah,
I don't know what I call
daisies,
those things. Just little flowers.
Yeah.
So this action sequence in the beginning is like, I think a lot of the budget was probably spent here. We've got explosions going off, huge mounds of dirt just being blown up into the air. We got gunfire and shrapnel falling all over the place. We got soldiers flying through the air and doing somersaults. So lots of action and stunts going on. And there's one particular soldier that we're following around. This is the Sergeant Ripper. This is who's played by Lance Hendrickson. And he's looking for his lieutenant. He's basically asking everybody, have you seen the lieutenant? But everybody he's asking is dead, right? The man right beside him, he turns him over and he's dead. So he starts crawling and he sees the barrel of a gun and he asks, have you seen the lieutenant? And he gets closer and he finds out the man behind the gun is dead. And he finally finds someone alive and he asks if he's seen the lieutenant. He points in the direction. Puff, puff, puff. Out comes some debris from gunfire and his hand just falls off. That was a fantastic practical effect. I didn't see it coming, and it was a lot of movie magic in that moment. Watching it back, you can clearly see that he's just, has like a fake hand that he's holding, and then he kind of drops it. But when you're not expecting it, that little sleight of hand like that is so effective and at bringing you into the moment, because it's such a subtle thing, but you realize everybody's in danger. You just poke your hand out of your little trench area, and next thing you know, you've lost your hand. So I thought that was effective. So at this point, the sergeant gets back to the trenches and he's looking for his lieutenant, and he finds him kind of hidden in the trench, just kind of posted out behind a blanket, just having a drink, just paying no mind to the fact that they're at war. So he's clearly just hiding from war. The sergeant calls him out. This, by the way, is Lieutenant Kalthrob. So this is the yellow man. And the lieutenant implores his sergeant to fire the flare and call the retreat. He says, I'm not calling the retreat. The general wants this. We need to keep pressing forward. He goes, no, we're all dying. He's in his bunker. We're out here. We're all dying. You need to call the retreat. So begrudgingly so, Ripper pulls out the flare, fires for the retreat, and that pretty much ends this whole, siege?
I definitely agree with you. Like, it feels like a Private Ryan moment, like this whole introduction and how artistic and poetic it was as well with the pushing daisies concept. But yeah, it's just explosions, dead bodies left and right, and you see like the gore and the dismemberment, which is really cool too. Like they really amped up their makeup work there. And like I said, from that point forward, I forgot I was in a Tales from the Crypt episode. It just really felt like I'm just watching, another war movie, like a really well done war movie. Like, nothing seems cheesy. Like the weapons are used were correct. The uniforms were correct. Like everything was just historically accurate. So I was all aboard. I was just so immersed in like the whole World War I in France.
Yeah, it was definitely good. Definitely a great opening, and it sets up enough to get you intrigued because you've got this right. You've got this real gritty, no nonsense. I'm here for victory character in this Sergeant Ripper guy, but then you have that little tail between his legs coward who immediately wants to retreat when there's when they're getting some pushback out here in the battlefield. So after this whole ordeal of the retreat, that's where we go into the bunker and we actually meet the general and the captain. So the general, this is the lieutenant's father, General Kalthrob, and he's speaking with the captain. I forget the captain's name, but he's the one played by Dan Aykroyd. So anyway, he's talking to his general, and this is where you get kind of the lay of the land and what's going on. So basically, this particular battle that they're a part of is very important because it's like a misdirection. So another platoon can go either retreat or fall back or get into another position. And basically, this retreat kind of really botched that plan. So, and by the way, this is where Ripper comes in and tells them all, oh, by the way, we retreated. Your son called a retreat. And that's about the same time where the general also learns that the lines have been cut.
Yeah, because that scene, he's like talking to Sergeant Ripper, or he gets in, Sergeant Ripper enters, and while they're like talking about, what's happening, the background, he's like, oh, like the guy on the phone's like, it's not working. And then John's like, oh, the line's been cut, like that's when he realizes it. And like I mentioned in the previous scene, it is historically accurate. So back in the day, they would actually have certain units who would actually run physical cable wires across the battlefield so they can have communication back at home base or whoever else. So it's a tough job realistically to be that guy running around with just wires to lay down. So I'm pretty sure they really just wanted take over, that portion of what the German soldiers were at, and make sure that they had the communication base set up, they had everything ready, and push them out of like wherever their front lines were. Honestly, because we didn't really get to see much of the front lines because we were too busy being with the American side. Because we only get like a minute or two of the German forces eventually.
Yeah, so, we do see them, but they're kind of shadowy figures. Yeah. So once they learn the lines have been cut, at that point, the general wants them patched up. So he says, okay, let's have the lieutenant go out with a platoon and go fix the wires. And this is where even the captain's like, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to send the lieutenant out. And the general asks, well, why not? And this is where there's an interesting dynamic. Like even the captain is nervous about telling the general. So he says, you tell him, Sergeant. So he forces Ripper's hand to basically tell him that his son is a coward. His son's yellow. And by the way, I love his delivery because he's holding onto it for a while. He's kind of avoiding the subject. He doesn't want to say it. He's trying to hedge his bets the best he can. He's, acknowledging that there's a power dynamic and there's seniority, and the general has to tell him, just spit it out already. He goes, he's yellow. And when Lance Hendrickson delivers that line, you can see the fear and the rage in his face. Like his eyes are shifting all over the room. Like he can barely contain his anger and ire that he has towards the general's son for being so cowardly. And I just thought it was a great delivery and great performance by Lance Hendrickson. So I definitely appreciated just that one moment. And that's where the general, by the way, turns around and says, get him in here. Did you have anything you wanted to add about that interaction with Ripper before we move on?
Yeah, I do like when they were asking Ripper what happened. Like, I guess when Ripper had entered, the captain offers him a smoke. So I guess they knew that they're gonna want to deliver bad news, right? So he wanted to like ease his nerves and like you said, just get it out there. And I didn't notice that his eyes were shifting when he delivered it, but just the whole the delivery, it did seem like he really didn't want to say it. Realistically, he didn't feel like it was his place, right? He wanted like maybe the captain to be involved in that, or maybe they know the dynamic between the father and son, and they just don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that could be the case. But yeah, I just like how as soon as you find out like that they're related and that the retreat was shown, immediately the general was like, you know what? I think I have a mission for him because he
Yeah,
is
I
not
think
yellow.
right. Yeah, I get the sense the father is either in denial, he doesn't see it, he doesn't realize it, or he knows that his son's cowardly and he's just trying to
Mhm.
either avoid the subject or just deny it and just, hoping that nobody else will notice. So yeah, something's going on. So Lieutenant Kalthrob comes in right after he's summoned, and the general clears the room, sends everybody out, and they have kind of, an alone conversation. And this is where the father basically tells them the expectations. Those men were supposed to hold their front while others retreated. And the lieutenant says, well, what difference does it make? We retreated. And the general gets upset at this point. He says, with bullets in their back. Like, if I'm going to, basically he's saying, if I'm going to lose a soldier, they better be fighting. They better not be running away. Like, we wasted those men is basically, I think, what he's really upset about. And then the lieutenant calls him out. He says, would you rather it be me? And the general says, that's not true. And his son responds, I don't know, but I do know that I don't want to be killed. And I notice in this scene, it's a very interesting way it's shot and acted. The son is not looking at his father. I don't think the son has the guts, he's too cowardice to even look at his father while he's confronting him. So I noticed that too. But at the same time, I've got to hand it to him. At a time when he's being so vulnerable and admitting that he doesn't want to die, he's confronting his father, whether he's looking at him or not. He's confronting his father. And to me, that shows a lot of courage. So I just thought it was an interesting dynamic there where he's admitting his cowardice. And his cowardice is on display throughout this episode, by the way. He does plenty more things that are very cowardly. But this whole dynamic is introduced in a time when I feel he's doing something very brave. So I just thought that was an interesting dynamic.
I didn't notice that. I think I was just looking at the general the whole entire time, so I didn't notice that he was kind of still, being cowardly by not confronting his dad directly eye to eye. Because every guy you have to look at the eye when you talk to them. That's just like a guy code. But then at the same time, he was being vulnerable, and that takes a lot of courage to like say like, hey, I don't want to die. It's like it's a tough moment realistically. Like who's right in this scenario? It is war. Like it's just chaotic, right? No one wants to be in it.
Yeah, it's interesting that his vulnerability, his cowardice is the fact that he doesn't want to die. And to me, that just seems reasonable. It's reasonable
Right.
to not want to die. It's reasonable to, right? I feel what he feels is more normal and natural. And to not have that fear is almost like toxic, like it's just an interesting dynamic that I thought was going on. So the son goes on to ask his dad, basically, like, discharge me, right? I need to get out of here. I can't do this. I'm not helpful, right? He's trying to be honest. And at this point, the general insists that he lead the platoon to go fix the lines for communication. And if he does that mission, then he'll be sent to the rear. So he won't be discharged, but he'll be sent to the rear. There's not much fighting happening back there, and he'll be safer. So that's kind of, that's what finally gets him to actually want to go on this particular mission. So that night, Lieutenant Kalthrob with his platoon, which by the way includes Sergeant Ripper, they go out at night and they venture into the battlefield to fix the lines. And they finally get themselves to a little crater. I think Lieutenant has like a little panic attack. He goes, we need to go back. We're getting too close to the Germans. And it's Ripper who says, no, you're going to stay here. Okay. We'll go up. We'll fix the lines. You stay back. Here's a whistle. Blow the whistle if you see any Germans, and we'll hear it, and then we'll retreat. Lieutenant, though, is not happy about this. He says, they'll hear me. They'll hear me if I blow it. He goes, they're not going to hear you, but we'll hear you. So they leave. They go ahead. And while they're fixing the lines or looking for the lines, the lieutenant actually sees Germans come up, and he has the whistle. He's ready to blow it, but he will not do it. He's terrified to do it. And the Germans end up spotting the Americans, and there's a gunfight, and all the basically they fight back, but they all die. And a grenade explosion actually blows Sergeant Ripper directly onto Lieutenant Kalthrob. So he's forced to face his decision, right? His decision that he made to not blow the whistle caused the death of these men, and now one of these dying men is like directly on his lap, like basically right there in front of him. He says, "You were supposed to warn us," and the lieutenant goes to leave, and I love this moment here. As he's getting up to leave, Ripper is actually holding onto him, like grabbing onto his clothing, and he has to pull away from him. This dead man, right? Who he caused his death is literally holding him back. So I thought that was an interesting moment there as well.
Yeah, I do enjoy this scene a lot. It reminds me of the first scene, how action-packed it was. And I didn't notice that he had like a little panic attack, but I did notice he was very hesitant to like assist with this whole mission. Because, like you mentioned, when he got the whistle, his first concern is like, oh, it's going to give away in position. But the important thing is to alert his teammates that there is danger, not their position is going to expose, because that's the last thing, right, that matters. So, yeah, maybe he was just having a panic attack, or he, just had too much shock in the system when he heard the Germans shouting, because he definitely had the moment to blow the whistle, especially after he like cowered behind the trenches. So it was unfortunate. But after with that seriousness happening, I was not expecting the way Ripper was going to get blown back to us, because it was kind of funny. Like it looks like he's like leapfrogging towards us with the explosion. It was a little goofy, so it took me away for a moment from the seriousness. But I was like, it's okay. It's just a one moment. But it cuts right back to him having to deal with that cowardice, because you can't really be a coward in in war like that, because it's gonna cost lives like that, like as shown, unfortunately. And I feel bad for Ripper, right? He was already against this plan. He has his doubts. He even made the next step and saying, you know what, I'm gonna fix the lines. You stay back. Like he played his cards very well, just for him to like pretty much have his own misfortune.
Yeah,
so
he was absolutely depending on his lieutenant. He was 100%. All those men in that squad were completely dependent on Kalthrob actually being alert. And he wasn't. So he let his men down. And this is by far what he's most guilty of. Calling the retreat, I guess that's arguable. Maybe he did save lives. That's definitely debatable whether or not what he did there was the right or wrong thing. Forgetting his comeuppance at the end. This is that. Without this moment, his comeuppance at the end would be like too much. But with this moment, it makes it kind of I guess poetic justice. So he runs back to the bunker, and he's absolutely hysterical. He can barely even contain himself. He's just running back. He runs into the bunker. He starts shouting hysterically to his father, and basically notifies him that they were ambushed and there were Germans everywhere. And I used every bullet in my gun. I shot and I tried to kill them all, and I barely got away. And at this point, even though they didn't complete the mission that they were supposed to do, the father is like content and happy with him. He's saying, that's okay that you didn't get the mission done. The bottom line is that you went out there and you tried, and you are not a coward. I'm proud of you, son. So that's what's important to him. And I think that's really important also for the son. I think it's also very important for Martin, is his name, to hear that from his dad. So at this point, right, I don't know though. Like he wants to hear that from his dad, and I'm sure he's and one part of him is happy to hear that from his dad, but I'm sure another part of him feels very guilty that he's getting that affection that he's always wanted from his dad, but it's all under the guise of a lie. Like he's lying to his dad, right? He completely is a coward. He didn't blow the whistle. He ran away. He let the rest of his team die, but again, he's willing to let his father believe the lie just to kind of get what he wants, like, oh, I'm proud of you, son. Or does he want the proud of, or does he just want to leave? Because he even says, you're still going to transfer me, right? And the dad says, of course I am. I always keep my word to my men. So I don't know. I guess there's a lot of ambiguity in here too. Like a lot going through my brain, how much does he care that his dad's proud of him versus how much does he care, is my dad going to keep his word? Do I get a leave? Like, I don't know. What do you think?
you kind of having like that scrambled thoughts, I think is good because like he just went through like a hysterical moment, so that kind of ties in with the scene. He's just kind of all over the place, and maybe he was emotionally split between wanting the praise and the that moment of being sent back to the rear. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think you're right. I don't think he knows what he's feeling more towards. But I think it might be the rear. Like he wants that one the most because like you said, he mentions it again. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll still give it to you. You did the job, so don't worry. But he's just like he's just rattly,
Yeah.
He knows what he did, so like it's just gonna eat him up each second. So
Yeah. And that could have been an interesting twist for this tale as well. Maybe he does get sent to the rear, but then he has to live with the guilt, and maybe he would even have like, nightmares of the sergeant being blown onto his, onto him and saying, "You left us all for dead." So that would have been an interesting way to go as well. So yeah. I like I like that you point out how scrambled I am. I just feel like this is such a well put together episode, and there's a lot of nuance in here. And when you're watching it, it just kind of it washes over you. And when I'm trying to recount it, there's just so much that I want to mention that I am getting kind of a little, I guess, ahead of myself sometimes.
it's all good and fun. We're not experts.
We are not experts. So at that moment, though, after he says, "I'm proud of you, son," enter Sergeant Ripper. So Ripper's not dead. He made it back. And basically he says, "You killed us, you goddamn coward." He actually pulls out a gun and points it at the lieutenant. They take the gun away. And at this point, he actually because he's holding a helmet against his stomach, he actually takes the helmet off, and you see his guts being spilled down on the ground. He says, "He saw the Germans come up from behind. He could have warned us, but he didn't. He's a coward." And I love, because remember before, he was nervous. He was scared to talk to the general, especially about his son being a coward. But now that all this happened, he has no problem literally and figuratively spilling his guts to the general and just telling him, "Your son is a coward. He's yellow." And at that moment, he falls down, and his last words are, "Yellow." I love that delivery too. That was so good. It's such a Tales from the Crypt delivery right at a death scene. That was so good. So at this point, the lieutenant has nothing to do but just to say, it's his word against mine, right? And even the captain is like, yeah, he has a point. Like, we have to take his word for it. And I think the general suspects something, because he even says, "Is that the gun you used to shoot the Germans?" And he says, "Yes." And he goes and he grabs his gun. He looks at it, and sure enough, all the bullets are there. So he says, "This gun has never been fired." And at that moment, the general slaps his son and basically places him under arrest. Do you think that the general already had a suspicion that this was going on? Because he didn't seem to really take the bait. He didn't really seem to kind of because he had the opportunity of plausible deniability. It's his word against, right? It's their word against each other. He can just choose to believe his son and then paint things over and make it look like his son was a hero. Like, he could have really went that route. The fact that he pressed his son and forced him to look at his gun to really see what was going on, I think maybe the general already suspected that his son was an issue. He wasn't brave, and he really wanted to just get to the bottom of it at this point.
Yeah, that actually might have been the case. The way I took it was maybe through just because it's his son. Maybe he just knows he doesn't handle firearms enough. Maybe it is just a last resort self-defense thing. And funny enough, I did want to bring this up because I don't know when it was going to be mentioned. And in no way, I have any military background or any families in the military, but I thought it was interesting that Martin, he had the Colt service revolver, which is like a little bit outdated for its time, just a tiny bit. It's not a fully outdated firearm, because during that time when Sergeant Ripper was upset at him, he draws his firearm, and it's one of the newer ones. It's a modern firearm. It's the 1911, which is like the newest issued army pistol. So the fact that he has an older one and he's a lieutenant, he's above the ranks and he has an older pistol, that has to be just like a novelty. Like, he's actually not going to be using like the new ammunitions and like any new firepower. He's not going to use any of that because he's a coward, right? And his dad might have known that. So I thought it was interesting that there was completely different setups in terms of loadout. So I thought that was interesting for me. But yeah, maybe his dad was off. Like, yeah, he did shoot the Germans, but when he saw Ripper die in front of him, he's like, did you really shoot your gun? You know, like, did you really shoot it? So I think that's when he's like, let me see your, your pistol. So I was like,
Oh,
oh, or yeah, your revolver. So
oh,
it was
interesting.
interesting to see that. Yeah,
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
yeah, he had outdated. That's interesting that you picked up on that, Godden. Wow, good for you.
Mm.
Yeah, Godden
I
is
think
our
yeah.
local gun expert, by the way.
No, but we're not
We're not
experts. We're not
experts. We're
experts.
not experts. Godden is our gun hobbyist or enthusiast.
There you go.
Yeah. So the next scene is the court. We're in court. I think it's court. I don't know what this. I just call it court. They were
It's a
basically.
church.
It's a church, but it's like a
Yeah.
courtroom. They like converted it into a courtroom. So they're
Oh
basically
yeah, yeah.
addressing the lieutenant's charges against him, and they find him guilty of derelict of duty, desertion under fire, and cowardice in the face of the enemy. And that, I think, is the one that strikes his father the most. Cowardice in the face of the enemy. So at this point, the general says, "It's my duty as the commander of this division to inform you, Lieutenant Kalthrob, that you have been found guilty of the charges lodged against you. The penalty of this crime is death by firing squad." He even says, "Take away the prisoner's shoelaces. I don't want him hanging himself." So it's interesting that he never addresses him as son, or he never calls him by name. He only calls him by position. And he doesn't like, he takes it like he's sentenced to die, and he at the same time he wants him to take away his shoelaces. So basically, I got the sense like, oh, not only are you going to die, you're going to die in the exact way that I want you to die. So this is, I feel like, the father, exerting complete control over his son and his destiny.
That's funny. I just took it as face value, the fact that suicide is usually looked at as a coward's way out, realistically, when it comes to like an honorable death. I mean, I guess Japan specifically has like the form of seppuku where they do have another honorable way to like commit suicide, but this is a Western civilization, so it's just another way of, just dodging the consequence. Like if he was death by fire squad and he finds a different way to kill himself, so he gets his like a satisfaction, then yeah, I think I mean, the line about the shoelaces hanging him, I was like, I don't know if that's physically possible. I totally understand though the idea behind it. Like that probably is doable. He probably could do something like that, but I'm not sure if he would actually die from his laces. But they are government issued boots, right? They might be like titanium, like laces for all
Titanium
I know. So.
laces.
Yeah.
Hey man, give me back my liquid metal shoelaces. So after the sentence is given, the lieutenant, the son, approaches the father, and the general says, "You're a disgrace to your uniform." And he responds, "I never wanted to wear it. You wanted me to." And he's taken away down to the dungeon, and the captain pleads with him. He says, "Aren't you being hasty?" And he says, "I will not have cowards in my army." So this is really like the pet peeve of his father, right? Like, of all the things the son could have been, cowardly is like at the top of the list of things he should not have been. And lo and behold, this general, who obviously finds courage the most, right, honorable thing to have, especially in wartime, his son just can't live up to him. So, and how relatable is that, really? Like the fact that there's something about you that disappoints your parents, in particular your father, right? From a man to his father, just the idea and the relatability of having something about you, having something in you that you just can't, you're not able to live up to the expectations of your father. So yeah, this is very relatable story, very relatable family dynamic going on here.
Yeah, I mean, his dad's a general, right? Like that's a lot of shoes to fill in, and I've honestly at this scene, I figured maybe he wasn't drafted. He really was just forced to join because maybe the military just runs in the family, right? Like his dad is just trying to surpass his father, and now he wants his son to surpass his legacy. So,
Oh, right.
The Kalthrobs, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that even comes up in the next scene. The father actually tells him, I've been a crappy father, but, my father was never there for me. He was in the army as well. So yeah, they do have a long line of this. It is a family endeavor going on here, being in the military. The next scene is the son is in the dungeon, or I call it the dungeon. It's like jail in this, like the basement of this church. It's a dungeon though, right?
I think it's like the rubble in the church. Yeah.
Yeah. So the father goes to visit the son that night, and I found it interesting that on the father's way in, before he goes downstairs, he stops and he looks up at Jesus there on the altar, and they have a little moment, and then he goes downstairs. I found it very interesting that he looks up at Jesus, who is a man who was sacrificed by his father. I found that very interesting, that the parallel there. So I wonder if he sees himself as God sacrificing his own son in this moment, right? Because he had just sentenced his son to death.
Yeah, I think that was the intent. It's just the parallel of like Christianity and like the fact that he's a father and now he's a because I mean his son isn't like he's not like a grunt or like any kind of like low unit. He is an officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like there's an expectation. So he definitely has influence among the army. So yeah, it's funny to see that parallel. Like he's gonna be God and his son's gonna be Jesus, and he's gonna be sacrificed for his sins and all that. So it was poetic.
Yeah, and I wonder, because he did make it to lieutenant, and I wonder how much of promotion did he get through his own merit versus how much did he get through nepotism, like his father being a general. I wonder if that accelerated his son's advancement up into being a lieutenant. I wonder
too, yeah.
So he goes down into the dungeon, and this is where they have their little heart-to-heart. And by the way, this dungeon area, did this not just scream to you Tales from the Crypt? Do you think this is the same set they use for Tales from the Crypt when they actually do the opening and closing segments with the Crypt Keeper?
Oh, I didn't think of it, but I didn't have that feeling. So if it was, that's really cool. But then again, we mentioned earlier that maybe this wasn't a set piece. Maybe it was shot on location or something. So
yeah, it might have been too large too. I don't know how big the set is for Tales from the Crypt. I just noticed a lot of the architecture was very similar. This is where they have the little heart-to-heart, and the son actually finally tells him, you weren't much of a father. And the father responds, well, that makes us even, son. You weren't much of a lieutenant. And the son is able to be very honest with his dad in this time. And he tells him, why? Because I'm afraid to die. He says 200 men leave the trenches and 30 of them come back, arms missing, legs missing. Anybody who goes out there and says they're not afraid is either a fool or a liar. And that really, I think, is at the heart of what's going on here. I know he has his sins. I know that he didn't blow the whistle and save his platoon. Okay, I get that. But his fear of dying is not cowardice. I think his fear of dying is natural and human. I think he has a fear of action. I think he freezes when he's scared. That fight or flight. I think he is a freeze, the fight, flight, or freeze. I think he's a freezer because when the war's going on, he's behind that curtain and he's stuck there and he's just drinking from his flask. When their Germans are approaching on his platoon, he sits there with a whistle an inch from his mouth and he can't blow it. So I think that is his fault, is he just can't act. But having a fear of dying, I think, is just so natural. So there's just that. Sometimes I have a thought, but I don't know where to take it, but I just want to put it out there,
I know. I know how you feel. I've had those moments too in our past recordings. I'm like, I won't even back to Kenny.
So the son says, but you let the fear get the better of you, and everybody knows it. That, I think, is the crux of what's going on here. You let the fear get the better of you, and everybody knows it. He doesn't care. I don't think he cares if his son's a coward. What he cares about is everybody knows his son's a coward. He says, is that what I'm really guilty of, Father? That the whole world knows that the son of the great General Kalthrob is afraid to die? Well, I am afraid to die. And by the way they're delivering their lines here Just they're just really over the top acting. It's very stage. It's very like a play, right? And even the fact that huge, lengthy scenes take place in one small confined area. It's very stagey to me. It's very performative. It's very like it's like we're watching a play. And I got that when we were in the bunker too. I didn't mention this the first time through, but in the bunker, I really noticed it a lot because not only is it a very, very small, cramped area, the movement all over the place is very play. Like we're over here by the board, and then we walk this way over here to the table, and then we walk over here, and then we trade positions. And like the movement is very little the camera and very much so the actual actors kind of moving their bodies around the set. So I found that also remarkable. And I didn't mention that back in the bunker scene, but I noticed that a lot in the bunker scene. And then here in the dungeon, I'm noticing it again because, right, the father walks in, the son's sitting there, and then the son stands up, and then the son sits down, and then the father approaches the son, and then the father sits down. So there's this really lot of dynamic movement in the scene, but very little of it is the camera. It's just the actors kind of moving around each other. And especially with the delivering of that line, that the son of the great General Kalthrob is afraid to die. Well, I am afraid to die. Even the way it's almost like a redundant two sentences in a row, right? Afraid to die. Well, I'm afraid to die. Like it's very poetic. It's like a play. You're like you're watching a play. I don't know how much more I can make this point. I should get off this point.
It's funny because now that you mention it, I do notice that now. Like, because compared to previous episodes, it's more action packed, more fast paced. Yeah, there's like a lot of like movement all over the place. Both the camera and the people. But this one is more like they have set areas there have to be in order to introduce the scene or say the lines. So I definitely see that now. There definitely is a lot of like higher production.
Yeah. And so this is where the father admits that he was too hard on his son. And he says, look, I know I was hard on you. I know you don't want to be here. And, my father was in the army. Was his father also a general or not? I missed that part.
I don't think they mentioned the rank. They just mentioned the history that the family was in.
Yeah. So this is a long line of army men, of militaristic family, right? So he says, look, this is where I came from, right? I came from a military family and I try to, force you into it. I was too hard on you. And the son says, well, it's a little late for that. I'm going to die. And that's where the father turns and says, no, you're not going to die. You think I would kill my own son? And that's where he tells him his plan. He says, look, the firing squad will come out to shoot you tomorrow. And there's always a blank in one of the bullets. That way everybody can, have plausible deniability. It wasn't me, right? The father says, I'm in charge of loading up all the bullets. I'm going to load up all blanks. They're all going to shoot blanks at you. You're going to pretend you get shot. You're going to fall into the ditch behind you. I'll even have a little bag ready for you that you could, use to basically get yourself home or get yourself just anywhere, right? And the son is impressed. The son says, really, you would do that for me? And he says, yeah, just do one thing for me. Show them you're not afraid to die, right? Show them that you're brave. And let me just tell you, when the father was first saying the plan, I was rolling with it. I was like, okay, I see where this is going. He's going to pretend to die and then escape, and then we'll see where the story goes. The moment, and I mean the moment the dad said, just show them you're not afraid to die, at that point, I got the twist. I got it. I understood it. Because the fact that the dad would say that that's what's important to him. He's trying to paint a picture to the son that you're going to live through this and you're going to be just fine. He's going to tell his son whatever he needs to tell his son in order to manipulate him to appear to be brave, because that's what's important to the father. Appear to be brave, whether or not you're brave at all, right? Because a brave son would face death with his head up and being proud, right? That would be a brave son. He doesn't care about having a brave son. He wants a son who appears to be brave. So that brings us to the next morning. We have everything set up there. We have the soldiers all kind of standing by. We have the drummer boys playing their music, and we have the father loading up all the rifles with bullets. And to the viewer, they would think, "Oh, those are the blanks." Wink, wink. So at this point, this is a kind of a haunting scene too, especially if you don't know the twist, you would just think, okay, they're blanks. But if you do know the twist, like perhaps on a rewatch, this is a haunting part because the father is loading those bullets to kill his son. So every single bullet that he touches will shortly be inside of his son. So that's kind of a haunting scene to think about, that he's doing it. So he's just doing it. The fact that he's doing it. At this point, they bring in the lieutenant. The door is open from the church, and out he walks into the sunshine, and he says, "Looks like a good day to die, Father." And the father doesn't respond. He looks away. He looks down, and he continues loading the rifles. From there, they walk the lieutenant to like a little platform that's kind of, in front of that trench area. And that when he stands up on that platform, he looks back and he sees a row of dead bodies. But then right beside those, he sees a bag, right? So he thinks, okay, this is the bag that my dad left for me. Now, knowing the twist, do you think the dad put that in there, or do you think it just happened to be there? Like what's up? Do you think it's probably just an empty bag, or like, what do you think about that bag?
I feel like there wasn't a lot of setup because he's just gonna load the bullets. I don't think he's actually trying to fully convince his son that, oh yeah, you're not gonna die. I think it was just kind of quick, like, hey, they're all gonna be blanks. Just face your fear, right? So I think that just might have been just happenstance. There just was a bag there, and he's like, oh, okay, cool, everything's good, everything's going as planned. But the whole entire time, the dad, is kind of like grieving, like in advance, like he's just kind of like in his own world, like knowing what's going to happen.
See, I beg to differ on that one. I think that the dad did put that bag there. I think it means that much to him to convince his son that he's going to be okay. He's so desperate for his son to appear brave that just that little piece of adding that bag there, just like he said he would the night before. I do think the dad put that there. So from here, the captain offers the lieutenant a cigarette. He says, "No, but I would like a drink." He takes a drink out. He takes a little swig. Captain offers a blindfold. He declines. He says, "No, thank you, Captain." Captain offers last words. And at this point, the son steps forward and says, "I tried, but I'm not the man my father is. And I apologize that my fear of dying got in the way of my responsibility to my men and the obligations to my commanding officers. I know now what Shakespeare meant. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once." And it was this last moment here when he actually quoted Shakespeare, when the rest of the episode just kind of flashed right through my head, because I had been thinking this whole time that this is so Shakespearean. It's so like a play, like I had mentioned already about 35 times. Like the fact that this looks so much like a play from beginning to end, and then it's basically, ended with a quote from Shakespeare. It's I don't know. I guess is it a coincidence, or do you think Zemeckis knew that he was directing something that was very play like, and then having a Shakespearean quote at the end?
I also just realized where that quote is from.
It's not from Hamlet. Where is it from?
Julius Caesar. And now his dad's backstabbing Julius Caesar. And he's saying the quote because he's Julius Caesar at this moment. Oh. Which I think is kind of cool in a way, if that was intended. But I kind of see like where they were kind of going. If
wow,
it's just kind of like loosely added in there, because he betrayed his men by accident, but then he's betraying his trust, saying they're gonna be blanks.
Oh, interesting. Okay, very very interesting. Yeah, I think that was on purpose. The fact that it's from Julius Caesar. Come on, there's a Shakespearean quote in every single play that's applicable to any movie or script.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, they pick the play first and then they dig for the quote. They'll find it. This is a little aside. When I was taking an English course, one of my professors gave me some advice, and he says, "You want to seem intelligent? Then whenever you hear something that seems profound, you say, didn't Shakespeare say that?" And one of two, he says, one of two things will happen. Either the person will say, "Yes, as a matter of fact, Shakespeare did say that," or they'll say, "No, he didn't say that, but he said something very similar."
That's funny. I'm gonna use that. That's good.
So at this point, after he gives his last words, he says, "I'm ready." The firing squad take aim, and just before they fire, this is where you get a glimpse of everything. This is where everything comes together. We get a push up, a close up of both of the Kalthrobs, right? The son, right, looking down the barrels of these guns. He looks over at his father, and then that's where we get the close up of the father. And just before the guns fire, the father can't bear to look at his son. He looks down and away. And in that moment, you see on the son's face, "Oh crap, this is the moment. I'm dead." Like, at that moment, he understood. So the guns fire, and I don't think there was one blank in there. Do you think the father loaded every single bullet with a bullet?
Honestly, it felt like it. There was a lot more bullet wounds to him than a couple. So I'm like, oh, I think they were all loaded.
Right. They may very well have been. And he is blown out of his boots, which is funny because those are the same boots that his father took the shoelaces out of.
Yeah.
So the father and the captain together walk up on the platform, look down to see the son dying, and the captain says, "Well, General, he died like a man." And the general responds, "Yes, my son is not yellow." And that was the point. That was the entire point. He just wanted his son to be seen as somebody who's brave. By the way, the flask that the son had been drinking out of the whole time, it said to Martin, "Let courage be thy name, love, Dad." So he died with courage in his hands. How funny is that the flask would be something about courage when it's literally filled with a bunch of liquid courage, right? But even liquid courage couldn't make a man out of him, right? Even liquid courage couldn't make him brave. He was still, like, when he was hiding from battle, he was drinking. When he was running away, not blowing the whistle, he was drinking. So also, I don't know if you noticed this, the moment the father looked away, we got a little musical cue that was very Tales from the Crypty, right?
Oh.
Like a very stylish kind of, oh my gosh, this is the twist moment from a typical Tales from the Crypt episode. That music came in again, which normally on a typical Tales from the Crypt episode, you would never really pay much mind to that. But with this episode in particular, because it's been so different, it's been so just like it took itself more seriously than a typical Tales from the Crypt episode. So when that music kicked in, it really it made the moment. I think it cheapened the moment, to be honest with you. I think associating that moment with Tales from the Crypt cheapened that part of the episode.
Yeah, I don't think I've noticed actually on the first watch through, and then the second time because I played on a closer to 2 times speed. I don't think I noticed it either. So it's interesting that they did add that.
Yeah.
Well, at least for me, it didn't feel cheap because I didn't notice it. So
Yeah.
I'll take that experience.
Yeah. Okay, and that brings us back to the Crypt Keeper, who is tied up to I think a tree or some sort of a pole. He says, "I guess Martin finally learned his lesson. No guts, no gory. Well, gotta go, kiddies. It's time for my shots. Fire!" And that's where he pulls the lever and all the guns shoot them all at once. He says, "Yes, yes, oh yes. Boy, I get a bang out of that." So that was the episode. So that's a long episode, by the way. I think I did mention in the beginning that it's 40 minutes. So it's like twice as long as a typical episode. There's very few scenes in it though. We go basically from the battlefield to the bunker, back to the battlefield, back to the bunker, and then we go to the church, and then basically out to the execution. Just a few scenes, but the scenes last for a long time. There's quite a bit of dialogue. There's quite a bit of moving around of the actors, and just it never gets boring. There's always something going on. The plot is constantly pushing forward, and it feels like there's a lot of momentum. And by the way, when the Lance Hendrickson character dies, that's about the halfway point. So that's about a typical episode. So then everything else that happens after that is like, it's almost like a to be continued. It probably could have been, if they really wanted to milk it, they could have had this be 2 episodes and just had to be a to be continued. But the point is, I know there's a lot that we left out. If there is a particular part of the episode that you feel was poignant or pressing or interesting, I want you to leave it in the comments, because I know there's quite a bit we left out. I tried my best to spend as much time on each scene, but there's only so much I can really rack my brain and remember. So I do feel like this is one of those episodes that's more artistic than a typical episode. So I do feel like each scene is probably a little more dense than a typical episode of Tales from the Crypt. So yeah, I please, if you notice something, I want you to put it in the comments, please, please, please. So this was a made-for-TV war-themed episode. Of course, it's going to make me think of like Band of Brothers or something like that, right? Even though this came out years before Band of Brothers. Yeah, I think the original comic had this take place during World War One. So this takes place during World War One. I'm trying to think, because there's not a lot of World War One movies out there. There's like World War II movies. There's a lot more.
World War II is more popular, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a big chunk of history. But yeah, World War One, no one really talks about the start of the,
to be honest with you, 1917 was I think the first big movie that I heard of that, like, oh, this is a World War One movie. Like that's that was a good one too. Have you watched that?
No, that's actually one of the movies in my war movie list that I want to watch. So.
Oh God, and you got to watch it. It's so well done. The fact that it's all done in one take, I felt when it was first coming out, I was like, oh, it's a gimmick. It's just a gimmick. It's not. Like, the fact that it's all done in one take, it gives you perspective on time and how large the battlefield is, because you can get a sense of it when they're actually going through and you see them take every single step to go across into enemy lines. You get a sense of distance by watching them travel. It's just, I thought it was so well done. And of course, being locked onto these 2 characters, there's no exposition. You don't get a sense of what's going on elsewhere. You don't get any long shots or shots from another person's perspective. So you really are just as lost as they are as they're traveling around. So I thought it was so well done. Oh, you know what? Actually, there is a scene in 1917 where when they're traveling, when they're traversing across the battlefield and going through craters, it did remind me of the scenes from here reminded me of that. So when they're traveling through to get to the wire, it reminded me, like, there's certain scenes in there that are that it's very similar. Like the trench warfare atmosphere is I think effective here, because it kind of gives you a sense of claustrophobia. You're kind of stuck in this area and it's just hell, like it's just everything's blowing up around you. And yeah. I mean, because were there tanks in World War One? There were tanks, right?
There were early adaptations, but World War II is like what really amped up the tanks.
And what about planes?
I think there might have been a prototype.
Planes were in World War.
Oh yeah, yeah. Funny enough, trivially, like that's how Germans lost, was because of the planes. They just didn't have the firepower compared to like Britain and the U.S. because they had different guns on their planes and they were just able to win every dogfight.
Okay.
So yeah.
What about other movies or TV shows that depict like never being able to live up to your father's expectations? Or falling short of your parents', expectations of you?
Star Wars?
Come to the dark side, Luke.
Yeah. What else could there be? The Devil Wears Prada. She got thrown into that position, and now she has like so much like responsibilities, just so much things to keep up and fill that role, like because she was such a novice until she became like that really demanding assistant role.
What
The rest
about
of the way.
Whiplash? That drummer who just, no matter what he does, he cannot live up to the expectations of his teacher. Right? It's very hostile as well, and it kind of creates a lot of tension between those two characters.
I see. Um, well, I'm not sure because they both have different expectations, but they want the same result in a sense, right? So like it's because he wanted to be like the next like prodigy, but he needed like a master to like really kick him into that. So I don't think it was more of a because they both have the same want. So that's why I don't see that because I feel like if it's not the same want and then they have to fill it, I think that's when they have to like, oh, now I know what I want.
Okay.
But from the get go, they both know what they wanted
Yeah,
initially.
I see what you mean.
But I totally see the parallel though with Whiplash either way because
Yeah.
that is a tough scenario.
For parents, like resenting their kids in some way also makes me think of Hereditary.
Oh,
Remember the main character, the son, you know, through carelessness, accidentally, kills his sister, and just the parents, just absolute resentment of their own son for that. It's much more. Actually, I don't know which one's more dark, that or this. I don't know. But I wonder if, given the same opportunity, would the mother in Hereditary be willing to legally, quote unquote, take care of her son? I wonder if she would be willing to cross that line, like the father did in this episode. Anyway, there's also the theme of just absolute toxic masculinity. I feel like the father is guilty of just being an absolute toxic male who's unwilling to have any vulnerability about him. Even his own offspring is not able to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like, he sees that vulnerability as a weakness. He sees being afraid as a weakness. And so much so that even his son expressing that, he won't allow it. He can't have it. So there's just a lot going on in this episode that I'm sure, this discussion can go on for a lot longer, but it's just, our episodes can only be so long, Godden. We can only go on so long.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's see here. I do want to get us to our rating. I am thoroughly impressed by this episode. I think episodes like this are beyond Tales from the Crypt. It's a phenomenal Tales from the Crypt episode. It's a phenomenal episode regardless of where it would end up. So, had this been just a made-for-TV movie, it would have been extraordinary. Had it been an anthology in another series, it would have been extraordinary. It's just an extraordinarily told story that has a very deep and profound meaning to it. So I don't know how I couldn't give this a 5. So I'm going to give this a 5 live rounds in the firing squad.
Oh, well, that's funny. I like that. Yeah, no, I could see that you thoroughly enjoyed this episode. Mine's gonna be a little different. Like, if I were to rate this just standalone, like, oh, it's a war material themed, episode movie, yeah, I'd be closer to a 5. But I have to be sort of strict, and it has to be Tales from the Crypt. So it has to be everything that I think of Tales from the Crypt. That has to be a 5. I agree. It is poetic. There's a lot of artsy stuff happening in this episode, and I'm not sure if this is consistent with shock suspense. But every time we get a shock suspense, it doesn't. It's not the Tales from the Crypt that I know, where it's not slapstick. It's not specifically where we are with the bad guy and then we get to see the bad guy's consequence. Because in this case, he's not technically the bad guy, right? He's not doing anything wrong. He's just at a wrong time. He's like the wrong person for this kind of environment. That's morally what it is. He's not immoral, right? He's actually one of the most humane characters in this series, realistically. So that didn't happen, and then there was a lot of gore. I mean, it's a war, episode, like, you can't pass up on gore realistically, but death wise, it's not Tales from the Crypt gore, right? For the death, like, it's a shooting firing squad, and he just dies and falls flat. I mean, it is funny that his boots came off because I did forget the laces were off. I was like, that's a little comedic. But I'm like, oh yeah, the laces. He doesn't have them, so it's whatever. So I will give this 4 stars for a general promotion because a little thing I noticed it was towards the end of the episode is that his father is a 3-star general, and specifically 3-star generals are lieutenant generals, and his son's a lieutenant. So I thought it was kind of funny. They didn't make him a 4-star; they made him a 3-star. They made him like under a general. So I thought that was silly. But honestly, from him getting rid of his son in that fashion, he might get promoted to a 4-star. He got rid of like the weakest link. So I'll give the 4-star general as my rating.
All right, so let's move in then to correspondence. So we heard from Iron Sabbath. Iron Sabbath comes through. This is regarding the episode Split Second. He says, fantastic episode. The fact that it's almost entirely shot in the wilderness, and Ted at one point mentions he was in Vancouver before coming to the lumber yard, makes me think that this takes place in Canada. And as a Canadian, I got to give 1 star based off that alone. So he's going to give it he's going to boost it by 1 star just for the fact that he's also from Canada. Very, very cool. He goes on to say, I would agree that Steve, played by Brian James, is one of the best performances in the entire series. He really sells to you that he's a complete psychopath. He is, to his eyes. Remember those eyes?
I do love those like pinned eyes.
Yeah. He says, I agree with Godden that Ted knows what's happening at the end by the way the demeanor changes. I think the twist is great, and I disagree with Kenny on that ending. I think the other lumberjacks helped him get his revenge, but it was definitely Ted's revenge 100%. They just helped him get there. All in all, I give this 4 out of 5 tree whacks. So like one of those stars comes from Canada. So I think he gave this a 3 out of 5, and then it bumped up to a 4 because it's from Canada. He says it's definitely one of the highlights from season 3 so far, and one of his favorite acting performances. And then he goes on to guess. I love this, by the way, because remember we had said try to guess the number of chainsaws. He says, I'm going to guess 12 chainsaws were used in the making of this episode, though only 1 got messy. That's true. Only 1 got messy. He says, thanks for another entertaining podcast. Always look forward to these every Friday and satiate my need to talk about the show with people. So I'm glad that we can be there for you on that. And this show satiates my need to talk about this show. So I appreciate that we have you on board. Iron, by the way, Iron came through on one of my streams, God, and I was streaming Final Fantasy a couple of days ago, and he actually came through, and we just chatted about Tales from the Crypt for a good couple of hours. So if you're out there and you want to be able to chat in real time with either of us, we have other ways you can get a hold of us. I know I mention it every single podcast, but this is a great kind of way to mention that. Too Bad About Kenny on Twitch for me and on YouTube, and then Godden's on Twitch at UAPPO6. If you want to come through on one of our streams and just chat about Tales from the Crypt or movies or horror in general, come through. I'm happy to chat with you. That's exactly what Iron did. So I was very happy to see you out there, Iron, and thank you for coming through. I hope you continue to come through, and I hope to see more of you in some of my streams. It'd be awfully fun to chat. Okay, the Jamirian also comes through on regarding Split Second. He says, this episode had so much to keep me intrigued. The voiceover had the allure of classic film noir. I didn't really pick up the fact that how noir it was, but it was, wasn't it? It was also a very noir episode.
Yeah. Actually, think about it now. Yeah, I definitely see it. But honestly, even if I noticed it, I probably wouldn't have said noir either way. I probably just would have continued with my depictions.
He says, the story was like a gruesome soap opera. The acting was stellar. The comeuppance was ironic and bloody as a Tales from the Crypt episode should be. 5 gloves. I think Ted knew what he was doing, and the guys not explicitly letting him know gave him plausible deniability. I look at it like the guys protecting Ted. That's a great angle. I think I might agree with you, Jamirian. And Joseph Hill comes through to talk about Split Second. He says, I like this one a lot. Brian James was great in his role as Dixon. He kind of reminded me of a completely unhinged Michael Keaton. like a Michael Keaton and Nicolas Cage mashup. I love that visual, by the way. Both of them have like a flair to their acting that can really go there and just seem so crazy. So I agree with you on that one. I never really thought about how many chainsaws, so I'd have to watch it again to even make a guess. Not sure if Ted is aware of what's going on, but it's still a fitting ending. And he says, I have to side with Kenny when it comes to Alien and Predator. Not that Alien isn't good, I just prefer Predator movies. So hashtag Predator, let's go. He also comments regarding Deadline. He says, this episode is kind of forgettable. Not really on par with most of season 3. It's a little too similar to some of the other episodes, but not as entertaining. So that's interesting to me because I agree, Joseph. It is kind of, it can be a very forgettable episode. But remember that the way it depicted that addiction to alcohol in particular, it really hit hard with me, and I really felt it. So yeah, that episode definitely hit differently with me. I definitely appreciated it for a lot of things that I realize an average fan wouldn't really care. But it really struck me. So I found the episode very entertaining to watch. And I think we have a first-time commenter. I don't remember reading a comment from Alex Collins before, but Alex Collins comes through regarding the episode Split Second. They say, I enjoyed this episode a lot. The plot was great, and watching this made me want pancakes. It took me a couple reads to kind of see what they meant by this, but lumberjack pan. You ever had a lumberjack pancake?
I don't know. Pancakes are pancakes to me, so I didn't know there was a
lumberjack pancakes. I think they're the ones with oatmeal in them. They're like thicker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're like huge, and they put like oatmeal in it, so it's more dense, it's larger, it's big. They're much bigger, and they're much more filling.
I believe you. I never had one, but I'll have one, eventually in honor. Maybe I'll have one watching the episode.
I'm eating lumberjacks while I'm watching lumberjacks chopping wood with their shirts off. We're about to wrap things up here, but I do want to say, if you are still watching at this point, I want you to comment with your favorite war movie. This episode was very heavy-handed on the war, obviously, and it made me think of a lot of other war movies and war TV shows. So what is your favorite right now? Saving Private Ryan was always up there for me, but I got to tell you, Godden, I was really impressed by 1917. That's also World War I. So it's strikingly similar to this. I thought the movie was so well done, and I really enjoyed it.
For me, my favorite war movie. Oh, I know. It's always going to be this one. Enemies at the Gates with Jude Law as what's his name? It's not Vladimir, but as the Russian sniper during that time.
Oh,
so yeah.
I never watched that
Vladimir?
one.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I'd watch it with you. It's a biopic. Is that what you call it? Yeah,
biopic or biopic. People call it different. Okay, now let's get ourselves to shout outs. We always like to have a moment where we shine the light back out there in the horror community. I have a list of some of my favorite podcasts down below. These include Creeps of the Crypt, Haddonfield Radio, Return, Revenge, Resurrection. You know the routine. I go through these quite a bit. We also have a few recommendations down below from our viewers, our listeners. So they actually also recommended a few that are down there below. There's one more that I want to add to the list. Dads of the Crypt. I just discovered these guys a few days ago, and I've been watching their podcast. It's just a group of dads who just get together and they talk about some tales from the crypt. Definitely very much our vibe in terms of just turning on the cameras and just blabbing on about something they enjoy. So if you enjoy this format, you may enjoy that as well. So give them a shot. I'll leave their link down below. And don't forget about us. My name's Kenny. And there's Godden, and we have our credentials and our social media stuff down below. So feel free to hit us up. And next week, we will be here, same place, same time, to talk about our season 3 ranking. So we're going to go through much like we did in season 2 and just kind of make a little tier list of all of the episodes from season 3. So come on back here for that. We'll see you then. Any last words, Godden? before we head out?
Yeah, I mean, just thank to everyone who's pretty much been sticking around, the day ones and people who obviously comment along too. I mean, we both thoroughly appreciate people who comment because like that is what gives us more to work with. Because as much as Kenny would like to talk about each scene as descriptive as possible, I know he loves to talk about the comments, and I too get really excited to talk about comments. So please, engagements, keep the engagements. We just want to hear opinions. I don't think Kenny and I will ever hardly judge, I mean, harshly judge your opinions if you differs from us. Like we want to see how you interpret these episodes. Like it gives us new light. It's fun to work with. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you disagree with something we say, I don't know about God. I can't speak on behalf of Godden, but on behalf of me, if you disagree with something I say, even vehemently, if you just hate something that I said, lay it on me. Like I won't take offense to it. Like they're just my ideas. They're not me. Like you can not like my ideas and we can still be friends. Okay. So yeah, I don't mind if you disagree and you want to voice your disagreement with me. It's not, they aren't fighting words. They're just ideas that we're exchanging back and forth. So I'm definitely up for that. With all that out of the way, we've been talking a while. This is a long episode. My voice is getting hoarse. I'm going to cut it off at this point. So we'll see you here next week. Until then, we here at the Cryptique Podcast wish you all sweet nightmares.
Well, how was that for a scream, boys and ghouls?